Good morning and welcome to Football League World TV. This is the weekend review. This morning I'm joined by Marcus, Ali and Billy Mulley, my Football League World colleagues, to discuss the best of the EFL teams in action in the FA Cup Championship and League One and League Two. Marcus, how are you doing this morning, mate?
Yeah, really well, thanks, Ned. A lot of drama, as always, in the EFL and in the FA Cup, so glad to be on, reflecting on a very interesting weekend of action.
Absolutely. And what about you, Billy?
Yeah, all good, mate. An absolute manic weekend of FA Cup action, Championship action and Leagues 1 and 2. So, yeah, looking forward to going through the very best of it.
Absolutely. Well, before we get started, as always, just a reminder, please do give the video a like. Subscribe to Football League World TV on YouTube if you haven't already, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. Were you at the game this weekend? We want to hear what you've got to say. Started then in the FA Cup quarter-finals. Firstly at the City Ground, where Nottingham Forest were beaten 1-0 by Liverpool thanks to Diego Jota's second-half goal. A hard-fought performance from Forest, who created a fair few chances of their own, but Marcus, some controversy in the second half, and that's where we're going to start with. Obviously, there was sort of a hint of potential offside with the goal. VAR ruled it was okay, I think, and then sort of a penalty shout on Ryan Yates, which wasn't given. I think there'll be a fair few sort of Forest fans, particularly ruining potentially, in their opinions, decisions going against them. How did you see these two?
It's a tough one, really. I think it's really hard for Forest to take that it's not a penalty on Ryan Yates. I find this whole discourse about the way he goes down pretty baffling, to be honest, because he's either been tripped up or he hasn't. He's either been fouled or he hasn't. It shouldn't really matter how theatrical the dive's got to be. You've got Roy Keane sort of commenting on the elegance of the way he's fallen and whether that makes it a penalty or not. For me, it's all completely irrelevant. Alisson trips Ryan Yates as he goes past him with a potential open goal. For me, that's a penalty. I know, that there might be a motive for us sort of Football League heads to be leaning towards Forest and hoping they can put in a giant killing, but trying to be as objective as I can. Yates is tripped up. Alisson gets nowhere near the ball. So I really find it surprising that wasn't given as a penalty. And of course, there's been the suggestions that if it was the shoe was on the other foot for Liverpool, would it have been given? Who knows? But for me, it's got to be a penalty. So I think that's a really tough one to take for Forest. Obviously, it was a great performance. Like they lose 1-0, but yeah, I think Liverpool will know that they were in a game there. And I think maybe Jed Spence was a little bit found out for the goal, tries to do one of his surging forward runs and loses possession. And then the cross comes in for Jota to score. I think that maybe points towards Spence's sort of lack of how much he suits the right back position in the back four compared to wing back. Obviously, he loses the ball higher up the pitch if he does receive it there at wing back. Obviously, losing it playing in a back four, the sort of repercussions of that ended up being a lot more disappointing for Forest. But yeah, I'm not sure about the offside. I didn't really see them get the lines out, but it definitely looked close. But I've got to sort of trust in VAR that at least they can get the offside right. But the penalty for me is clear cut, to be honest. Yates tries to avoid Alisson and stab the ball into the empty net, and he's unable to because he's tripped up. No matter which way he goes down, whether it's honest or theatrical, I think he's been tripped there and it's got to be a foul.
Absolutely. Certainly, as you say, reasons for frustration for Forest, but Billy, also I guess reasons for positivity. Steve Cooper spoke after the game about that 2-minute spell, sort of starting with Zinkernagel missing the chance and then Jota scoring the chance was sort of will that cost them the game, really? And that could really have gone either way. They didn't really look out of place against Premier League opposition, Billy, but I guess the focus now has to be getting up there next season and getting the chance to sort of play Liverpool twice.
Yeah, as you say, Nottingham Forest didn't look out of place at all against Liverpool. As Marcus says, Liverpool knew they were in a very competitive match, and that wasn't just the case for a 5-minute spell. That was throughout the entire 90. And to compete against a side like Liverpool, how dominant they can be in the Premier League, it's a real credit to the job Steve Cooper's doing at Nottingham Forest and the individual talent that they've got. I think the one negative is that they've over the last sort of few weeks in their FA Cup run that they've people have assessed how the likes of Jed Spence can do against Premier League opposition, likes of Brennan Johnson, Joe Worrell. So yeah, I think they've definitely they're going to get more and more suitors as summer nears. But yeah, an incredible performance, a really battling display, but also real signs of creativity and elegance going forward. I'm really impressed to see a Championship club take on a side like Liverpool in the way they have done, and yeah, a really good advert for Championship football. And it just goes to show how competitive this Forest team can be. And as you say, all eyes now to the league, and they've got a real good opportunity of getting promoted this season.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll shift our attention then to the Riverside, where Middlesbrough were beaten 2-0 by Chelsea, thanks to goals from Romelu Lukaku and Hakim Ziyech. Billy, obviously it's been a really impressive sort of FA Cup run for Borough, beating first United, then Tottenham, drawing a lot of plaudits for Chris Wilder, the job he's done. Was this just a case of sort of a one step too far for them?
Yeah, I think it has to be, and a lot of the positivity that we've just spoken about, Forest, can be applied to Middlesbrough in the way that they've beaten Manchester United and deservingly beat Tottenham as well. Two very good performances. But yeah, I think this was more of a game where I won't say outclassed or outplayed, because there were spells where Middlesbrough did show exactly what they can do, but I think Chelsea managed the game a lot better. I think that Nottingham Forest were in their game a lot more than Middlesbrough were in this one. And I think that just goes to show that the individual quality Chelsea do have. And again, as a collective, they are a very, very good outfit. As you say, they've done very well to get to this point in a very similar position to Forest, when all eyes go back to league action, and they can be very proud of what they've done. But there's still so much at stake in the league, and if they can get to these levels of performance on a consistent basis, and that they'll definitely have a really good chance of securing a playoff spot. So competitive around those top 6 positions at the moment, and it's now down to, as well as performances come down to it's down to fine margins as well, and making sure you get the better of them.
Absolutely, certainly going to be a sort of tight playoff race in the final few months of the season. Marcus, for the second goal, there's been some criticism of Borough goalkeeper Joe Lumley. I think perhaps for many that watched him at QPR, it's surprising to see him, be a first choice goalkeeper for a promotion winning side, because there were question marks certainly over him at QPR. Do you think Lumley's form and I guess the errors that he can be prone to, is that a concern for Borough in the final few weeks of the season?
Yeah, it's a huge concern. I'm really worried about Lumley, to be honest, being Borough's Achilles heel, because you look at them, the starting 11 is very ready for a promotion push, except for Joe Lumley. I know he's getting criticism for the second goal. For me, I thought the first goal, he's even more at fault. Lukaku ends up tapping the ball in from almost halfway inside the 6-yard box. If the goalkeeper can't get to a cross that's that close to him, then I think you've got to be really worried. I wrote an opinion piece a couple of weeks ago about how I thought Borough need to bring in a goalkeeper without in the free agent market. We've seen Oyan Neuland and Westwood fall out for that to go to QPR and Rennes, so there might not be a lot of choice there, or at least give Luke Daniels an extended run, who's currently the backup keeper. Really turned out Lumley, to be honest. I don't even think he's a second standard goalkeeper, and he was exposed.
The season, our focus shifts next to the Championship and 2 games that will have an impact at both ends of the table. The first of those is Reading's 1-0 win against Blackburn Rovers. Josh Laurent with a 78th minute winner there. Marcus, what did you make of this game? A massive result for the Royals, and one that potentially, creates that gap that maybe means it looks as though Barnsley are potentially the only side they've really got to be concerned about now.
Yeah, it's an absolutely enormous result. It was quite end-to-end. It could have gone either way. And also, I think possibly the most important sort of wrinkle of getting the result is the fact that Reading play Barnsley next up after the international break. Going into that with a 5-point cushion puts them in so much of a better position and throws all the pressure back on the Tykes, because if they don't win that game at Oakwell, then they really are, well, it would be a tall order to survive if they are unable to take the 3 points. And in combination with that, if they do take the 3 points, Reading have still got a 2-point cushion. Whereas if they didn't win at the weekend, they would have been travelling to Oakwell with the chance that they could end the game inside the relegation zone. So it's an absolute quality strike from Josh Laurent, right out of the top drawer, deserving of winning any game. But I think it's another game where Blackburn are kicking themselves for missed chances. Sam Gallagher should really give them the lead in the second half. I think he kind of slips and misses a close range strike. So yeah, another one where Tony Mowbray is going to be pulling his hair out. A positive would be that Bradley Dack is starting to look back to fully firing, and he is causing problems in every game that he does play. But Rovers now are down to 9th on points per game. They're still inside the playoff places just because they played a few more games, so by the skin of their teeth. But yeah, they're looking up against it now. I think the strength of the sides below them will definitely fancy their chances, given how poor they've been in front of goal. Brereton Diaz can't come back quick enough. But yeah, huge result for Reading, and huge implications on the relegation battle in the Championship.
Billy, Marcus touched sort of briefly on Blackburn there, and I guess the moment of quality that Josh Laurent produced is that really what their issue has been in recent weeks? Is that what's been going wrong? Sort of not being able to come up with those 1 or 2 moments of quality to sort of win games?
I think it has to be, because it has been quite difficult to put your finger on what exactly is going wrong, because the performances typically have been there for a while. They very rarely get dominated. The fact that they've now gone 10 games in the last 14 without scoring, that really is inexcusable, given, I know they've got a lot of injuries and it has been an issue all season, but the talent they still have at their disposal, especially within that front line, does not warrant for them to be having these kind of goal scoring droughts on a frequent basis. And you think their 3-1 victory last week was, it seemed to be the turning point, and it seemed to be that the performance was there, that the goal scoring touch was there, and it seemed that everything was falling back in place. But this is just another turn in the road, and you just don't really know where Blackburn are going to go from here. And it really does look like they're going to miss out because of their inability to take chances on a consistent basis, something that, you just wouldn't associate with them, about 3 or 4 months ago.
Absolutely. Well, eyes in both Blackburn and Reading will have been on Sunday's game in London as Peterborough United beat QPR 3-1. Luke Amos put the R's ahead, but a Johnson Clark-Harris brace and a Jack Marriott goal earned Posh a win. Billy, we talked about how important it was for Reading to further, claim those 3 points. But does this win keep sort of Peterborough's survival hopes rather alive?
It's strange because throughout this weekend, they haven't gone any points closer to escaping the drop, but it's the kind of performance that you would it would bring about a lot of positivity and, genuine faith that they can get themselves out of the situation they've been in. And it's really strange. Every time I watch Peterborough play, they look a really, really good outfit. So yeah, it's just strange that they haven't been able to find too much consistency when things go well this season. Another team that seemed to put in the performances at home, but just this season away from home has been quite difficult. But this is the kind of result that could be pivotal in their chase for surviving the Championship drop. And very, very good to see Jack Marriott scoring goals again. Been a bit stop and start for him this season. Johnson Clark-Harris. Again, I think he's taken his total to be on 10 now for the season, so that's a great stat for him. I think he's relied a lot, even last season, on service. A lot of the goals he did score were from the brilliance from Joe Ward and more central players as well. And to be able to score goals at the rate he is at the moment, that could be massive going into the closing stage of the season. It's a victory for Peterborough that they won't be too happy that the international break is coming, because it's the kind of result that you can build momentum from. But I think on the flip side of things, QPR need this break to gel back together and really address the issues, the sort of consistent issues that have been going on, because it's real drop in form and performance levels in recent months from them.
So Marcus, talking of QPR, then more frustration for them. Just 2 wins in the last 10 out of the top 6. I mean, I guess it's an interesting one when a sort of drop in form stretches on this long. Are we looking at a blip in QPR's form, or are we starting to realise that perhaps earlier in the season they were overperforming?
Yeah, definitely. It's not a blip for me. I think they're more regressing to what their base performance level is based on the quality of players in that squad. That's a match you really earmark as 3 points to get yourselves back in contention. Down to 10th on points per game. For me, I think it's going to be a tough ask for them to get back in the playoffs. They've also got a pretty difficult run in. So sadly, I think that was the final sort of day of hope that Rangers could finish in the top 6. I do think it is just a little bit too soon. I still think Mark Warburton's doing an outstanding job, and they've got plenty of players that got their best years ahead of them in that squad, and they could maybe go one better next season. But yeah, I think performance levels have dropped off even before this run of just 2 wins in 10 began. That they haven't really been great since, well, the back end of last year. So yeah, nice to see Luke Amos getting on the score sheet. He could be a player to step up and take on the mantle next season. But no, I do think they did overperform in the first half of the season. Credit to them for doing so, and there is still hope. I just think, yeah, it's possibly a season too soon in this cycle, and maybe they can go one better next time.
Absolutely. Well, that's everything from our breakdown of the Championship games. We'll move to League One next. Now, we on Football League World at TV have been sort of, well, huge in our praise of Rotherham United this season. But there's only really one place to start in League Two. A 3-0 win to Shrewsbury. Udo Bennett and Bowman goals off with an Angus MacDonald red card for Rotherham. Marcus, a shock result, yes, but Rotherham haven't looked sort of as untouchable in recent weeks. So was this coming in some ways, and can we still sort of consider them title favourites, or is that mantle sort of slipped?
There's going to be a long way to go. I think Wigan, maybe similar to Rotherham, have been grinding out results and have a result like this coming for them. But yeah, I do agree with you that it has been coming, that there's been a lot of low margin results for the Millers, keep relying on keeping clean sheets to stay on the right side of the fine margins. And although it was hugely exacerbated by the red card, both the second and third goal for the Shrews are sort of on the break while Rotherham are trying to get back into the game. They did take the lead, of course, against 11 with a great strike from Udo. What a season he's having. But yeah, so I do think it was coming for Rotherham. The red card's really clumsy. It's one of them that sometimes we see go unpunished, an elbow in an aerial duel, but I think it has to be classed as dangerous play, to be honest. So yeah, I think it was the right decision to send off Angus MacDonald, but yeah, I'm sure Rotherham will bounce back from this, and it could only contribute to maybe somewhat of a thrilling title race towards the end of the season, with it looking like those top 2 positions are going to be wrapped up before the final few weeks. So yeah, it gives some enthusiasm to Wigan that they can go on and claim what would be a very unlikely league title after battling relegation for the vast majority of last season. But I think Paul Warne will take this opportunity to just sort of reset and refocus. And yeah, the scoreline looks worse because of the red card. But yeah, I do think a result like this was coming, but I'm sure they'll bounce back.
Shifting our focus, Billy, then to the Shrews. You know, it's been something of a difficult season for them, but some, not necessarily a turnaround, but certainly lots of positivity in recent weeks. Are they finishing the season with some real momentum now?
Yeah, it appears to be. I think they've been in a bit of a false position. The fact that they have been seemingly battling to try and ensure their League One status for another year. I think they're a lot better than that. I know results hadn't really suggested that. But yeah, I think that they've sort of found their stride in recent weeks. And, you know, it's a shame that it took so long to kind of gel, because it's an exciting team. And whilst it may not be happening this year, I think that they're definitely going to give themselves a real good platform to build upon next season. I've been really impressed by the addition of Flanagan. I think that stood out as, you know, one of the more eye-catching deals in January. Tyrese Fornár as well. He's looked very, very impressive. I watched a bit of a highlights reel of his, and he really, really looked assured, and he led. In the middle of midfield, he just looks a real exciting player, and someone that could go a long way in his career. And elegance on the ball, but he's got those sort of tough tackling tendencies as well. There's a lot to like about that Shrewsbury side, and I think they could go on to good things in the near future. It's it'd be exciting to see how they finish the season, and if that can be a platform to build upon for next season.
Absolutely. Well, our second game that we're looking at in League One is the 1-1 draw between Ipswich and Oxford United. Burson Selina with the opener for McNally bagged a 94th minute equaliser. Marcus, a disappointing one for Ipswich to take, not least because it was a fantastic performance from them. They really sort of controlled the game, and they're really starting to show sort of positive, well, not just show, but I guess the positive progress is really there to see under McKenna.
Yeah, they're making huge strides, to be honest. I think they could potentially even go in next season as favourites to win the league, as I think they were right up there at the start of the season. McKenna has got his methods across really nicely in the last few months. Obviously, starting by shoring them up defensively, which from that they'll definitely be gutted to concede from a set piece so late on after the record. I think it was just 1 goal conceded in 9 games heading to the Kassam Stadium this weekend. But yeah, they're one of the form sides in the division. I think Oxford knew that. I think you can tell. It speaks volumes of how good Ipswich have been at just how much that meant, that late equaliser to Oxford. They knew that a draw was going to be a good result in that game to keep the Tractor Boys at arm's length. It's now 6 points they need to make up with just 7 games left. So yeah, it's looking at a tough ask, but they're definitely putting themselves in a great position for next season. Just like to single out Wes Burns. I think in and amongst a lot of summer signings, I think he's been one that's been a very consistent performer this season. He's got 10 goals and 5 assists in all competitions and was instrumental in almost earning them a huge 3 points at the weekend. So plenty more positives to take. I think the nature of the result, of course, conceding late is going to hurt, but with how good they are in League One, how many goals they've been scoring of late, a draw away at Oxford is always got to really be classed as a good result. So even though it doesn't really help them in their current situation, that they won't be giving up until it's mathematically impossible. And it was another encouraging performance from McKenna's side.
Yeah, as you say, Marcus, sort of more positives than negatives. But one negative potentially is the lack of a consistent goal scorer in that number 9 position. Is that something that you think has sort of held them back, Marcus, and stopped them perhaps making the progress under McKenna that would have thrown them into the playoff places?
Potentially, I do think that's a little bit of a symptom of the way that McKenna's wanted to play and the way that he's focused on them out of possession so much since he's come into the role, rather than looking for them to blow teams away. Obviously, Macaulay Bonds had his issues off the pitch that might have contributed to his sort of decrease in form since starting the season so well. The Joe Pigott move really hasn't worked. So I think the personnel has gone against him a little bit. Obviously, Caden Jackson's out for the rest of the season as well. So it's been a tricky one to manage because there were so many strikers when he arrived there. Obviously, Norwood and Jackson were completely exiled under Paul Cook. I think McKenna deserves a lot of credit for integrating them back into the first team, and they have been able to contribute at times as well. So with Bon on loan, potentially Pigott looking at an exit, that will be an area that they'd like to address in the summer. But I think when you've got the players that operate behind the front man of the quality that Ipswich have, I think that's where you've got to look to where the problems lie. I know Selina's had his moments, but he hasn't really been able to deliver on a consistent basis as much as we would have hoped, considering what a high-profile signing it was. I think Connor Chaplin as well, after being heavily involved with Barnsley in their 5th place finish in the Championship last season, I would have expected a little bit more from him in the 3rd tier this term. So I think they're still very healthy going forward, but yeah, potentially they could be looking for a new number 9 who can be a consistent figure at the top of the pitch for them next season.
Marcus touched on it a little bit previously, Billy, but shifting our focus to Oxford, a bit of a smash and grab from them, but a fantastic point in what's looking like being a sort of really tight race, for those playoff places.
Yeah, 100%. And as much credit that we give Ipswich for their performance, we are moving to that results-based point of the season where, performances only get you so far. And it's just about ensuring that you pick up difficult points like this. And I think Robinson said the Tractor Boys were the best team that they've come up against in a while. I don't know if he meant the full season, but yeah, he definitely gave a lot of good words about the performance from Ipswich and what they can go on to achieve next season, and who knows, even this season. But yeah, I think that just is a suggestion of the nature of the game. Ipswich saw a lot of possession, created a lot of chances, and everything pointed towards a good Ipswich performance. But I think ultimately Oxford stood strong. They've been doing that this season. They own the right to play usually, but they weren't really allowed to play this time around. And I think it's getting results like this, and whilst perhaps not being at their best, that's a good indicator that they could come through the playoffs and do really well. I personally think they're going to go on and win the playoffs. It's quite a bold claim, but I've been really impressed with what they can do this season, winning in different ways, playing in different styles, and ultimately they've got a very, very good squad capable of going on and doing it third time around. So a result and a performance with sort of contrasting views around them, but yeah, I think ultimately it's about just picking up points and ensuring that they are in the playoffs, and going from there.
Well, the one League Two game that we're going to have a look at today is Bristol Rovers win at Northampton. Harry Anderson with a decisive goal there. Marcus, a statement win for Rovers, who've obviously been in fantastic form, but it's over a sort of top three side in Northampton, the side just above them in the table now. Just how good were Joey Barton's side?
It was a professional job, to be honest. I wouldn't say it was vintage Bristol Rovers. Obviously, they take the lead so early, and that completely changes the outlook of the game. They knew just how much those points would mean to them, and they were. It was more of a sit back and contain job after taking the league so early. But obviously, I think I was on the weekend preview saying that if the Gas could handle Cobblers aerially from set pieces, then they'd have the upper hand in the match. That was how it worked out. They did ride their luck a little bit. I think it was John Guthrie hit the crossbar with a header from a free kick. The type of goal that we've seen him stick away consistently this season. But what an enormous result for Bristol Rovers. Very sort of similar, it feels, to Bolton Wanderers and their rise last season, now in fourth spot, and that they'll definitely fancy their chances of breaking into the automatic promotion places before that they run out of fixtures. Yeah, an enormous result. And Harry Anderson getting the winner, a bit of a signing that went under the radar for me, I think, in the summer transfer window. He was a key cog, really, for Lincoln City and taking them almost to the Championship, obviously losing out in the League One playoff final last season. So to sign him for Bristol Rovers shows what a big club they are for League Two. And obviously a really decisive contribution. Two really costly mistakes from Fraser Horsfall in 3 games now. It was a dodgy back pass that Anderson was able to latch onto and slot past Liam Roberts. So a huge result for Bristol Rovers. And somehow, I mean, I think they were about 16th or 17th at the turn of the year. Now they're looking at automatic promotion. You've got to love League Two at the moment. Yes,
certainly has been quite the rise from Rovers' perspective. Billy, a defeat for Northampton, but their run-in is looking relatively kind. Hartlepool, Mansfield, Bradford, Oldham, Harrogate, Orient, Exeter and Barrow. That's at least a positive for them to take looking forward, isn't it?
Yeah, I think lucky you brought that up, that it's a favourable run-in, because I don't really feel that they're going to even get playoffs at this stage. I think they've rode their luck at times this season, and the fact that they found it too difficult to breach a defence in 89 minutes of football at home, I think is a big indication that things haven't really been working out in recent weeks. Have been very inconsistent, and whilst they do have a squad capable of continuing to compete at the top end of the division, I think that they might buckle under the pressure, and I think that some of the form from teams just below them could drop them out of the first of all, the automatic promotion race, and then because of how tight things still are, it wouldn't be a surprise to me if they dropped out the playoff picture too. I'm sure they'll be. I'm sure it's going to be very, very competitive, and as I said, they do have a strong enough squad to continue doing that. But we get to the point of the season where it's not just about ability and the level of squad anymore. It's also about the mindset and ensuring that mentally you're as strong as you are physically. And I think, for that reason, it could be quite difficult for them. But hoping they prove me wrong, because yeah, they're a good side, and they've been up until this point they've been relatively consistent this season. It's just about ensuring they remain that for the closing stages of the season.
Absolutely. So perhaps something to worry about for Northampton, but Rovers absolutely flying at the moment. Well, that is everything from us on Football League World TV for this show and for today. But that just leaves me to say thanks to Marcus and Billy, and thanks everyone for watching.